joining hands to build a closer community with a shared future for China and Africa. Well, we'll have a research fellow, Ms. He Wenping, joining us later in our program. She is with the Institute of West Asian and African Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Before that, let's take a look at the Beijing summit of the FOCAC. President Xi Jinping has put much of his focus on cooperation with the African continent, and since taking office in 2013, the Chinese leader has visited the continent altogether 4 times. Let's take a review.
Xi Jinping first visited the African continent as Chinese president in March 2013, shortly after taking office. Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Africa were the first 3 countries he visited. It was during this trip Xi Jinping proposed to establish a sincere, honest, close and earnest partnership with African states. President Xi also attended the 5th BRICS summit in Durban, South Africa, for the first time as head of state. That year, BRICS leaders also established goals to build a development bank and a foreign reserve institution. Just 2 years later, President Xi set foot on his second journey to Africa, visiting Zimbabwe and South Africa, where the second China-Africa Cooperation Forum was held. At the forum, he upgraded China's relationship with African countries to a comprehensive strategic partnership and announced a $60 billion sponsorship to cover 10 major cooperation plans. The big package covered sectors like infrastructure, agricultural modernization, poverty reduction, public welfare, and peace and security. In 2016, President Xi took a trip to Middle Eastern and African countries after political unrest in the area settled down. He reaffirmed the importance of negotiation during times of conflict and managed to establish dialogue mechanisms with 8 Arab countries, including Egypt in Northeast Africa. President Xi's latest trip in July was his first diplomatic tour after starting his second term. He went to the United Arab Emirates before visiting 4 African countries, Senegal, Rwanda, Mauritius and South Africa, where the BRICS summit was also held.
共同开创金砖合作第2个金色的10年.
At the summit in Johannesburg, Xi said the year 2018 is the start of the second golden decade for BRICS. He proposed to better integrate the Belt and Road Initiative with Africa's plans in order to bring common prosperity. President Xi's trips strengthened China's relations with its African partners. They echo the intent behind China's Belt and Road Initiative and African Union's Agenda 2063, aiming to bring more international recognition to the 2 sides. Ma Ke, CGTN.
Malawi is a landlocked country in southeastern Africa. China and Malawi established diplomatic relations in 2008. As at the summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation approaches, CGTN recently talked to Malawi's President Arthur Peter Mutharika, and he said Chinese investments in his country have not only brought rapid growth to the economy, but also benefited Africa overall.
Xi Jinping mentioned that quite emphatically in his major speech at BRICS. Again, the importance of transport and communication. So that's the impact here. I think take advantage of transport and communications. There are 2 keys, and of course also into ICT. I think that the key areas that can impact us here in Malawi. I know there's an investment, for example, over Malawi Backbone, a project, phase 2, by one of the Chinese companies. So we want to get internet transport over the country, so things can move and communication can take place. So those are the kinds of things that I think can bring about rapid growth over our economies, Malawi, but also Africa's economy. We need more penetration, I think, also infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, because that's part of infrastructure program. I think it's certainly the investment in infrastructure that one issue to increase cooperation in that area, because it's so important that we have infrastructure for us to develop. And another area I would like to discuss I think I have a number of bilateral meetings also, is skills training. We need more skills training in this country, because no country can develop without a skilled labor force. We'll be talking about that. I think cooperation in agriculture and education, we'll be talking about that. So there are quite a number of areas, I think, that are of importance to China, but also to us as Africans. Chinese investment has been extremely useful in this country. You have seen the parliament building as you were coming. That was built by the Chinese on a grant basis, but also one of the roads in the north. And there are a number of projects here, hotels, including one University of Science and Technology, which are built by Chinese on a concessional basis. And the other investors from China, this project I mentioned, the business park, which will employ 3,000 people, is by Chinese investors that are investing $100 million. It's already in progress. And also in Blantyre, we have another one there, about $50 million, and many others in roads, agriculture, and so forth. Cotton processing. So no, Chinese investment is very good, and we are also have access to Chinese market, to selling some of our tobacco there, and hope to sell our soybeans and some of the legumes. We hope to sell those also to China.
Now let's talk to Ms. He Wenping, a research fellow at the Institute of West Asian and African Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to Global Watch. Welcome to the World Today, Ms. He Wenping. Well, the summit will start at the beginning of September on September the 3rd and the 4th, to be more specific. What's your expectations on this year's Beijing Forum as an African expertise?
Well, a lot of expectations. Actually, we have been busy all the way around. A lot of workshop has been taken place, either by Chinese, those Africanists, also together with our African colleagues. So a lot of issues has been put forward. For example, how to further promote this China-African cooperation, especially given the current international environment. Now is totally different with years ago. So how to join hand to address those challenges. For example, like trade issue. Even years ago, we have a very ambitious goal, saying trying to double this trade volume. By that time, it's 200 billion, and then want to double it to the 400 billion. But you see, this goal now is very obviously is not easy to reach. Actually, because even has been down from those 200 billion at that peak time. The reason is two. One is the price of the raw material has been dropped in a very sharp way. Another reason is now we have seen very clearly this global trade protectionism now is rising rather than decreasing. So I think that's why this coming summit, I think both China and Africa, we want to send a joint signal out. That is, in order to push this inclusive globalization forward, we need also very friendly international trade environment, rather than just every country just doing the things by themselves. So I think this is globally talking. China-Africa bilaterally, of course, we will certainly issue a lot of those those package to promote those trade and investment and in all rounds of cooperation. Yeah, we have already labeled that in the 2015 Johannesburg summit, have been labeled like because even though you have a level 10 points. But actually, some of the them, we are just beginning, for example, peace and security. Yeah, we are not entered in that area like for a long time, such as infrastructure building. So this is a new area. And also like people to people, also new area. Before China's like NGO, we are still baby stage. So they are just in home, they hasn't gone like abroad, like to engage with other countries' NGO, like P2P. I think even academic level, like myself, have been involved in. I don't think those joint research has been done. Actually, it's just the joint workshop maybe have been done, but the joint research also is beginning. We haven't read those articles like being written or published by Chinese scholar and African scholar. So this is also the future area to be further develop that potential. So with those joint research, you can combine the different perspectives, like Chinese scholars' perspective, including African scholars' perspective, because you are based in a different area, there are different position. Of course, there are different understanding. So how to keep a balanced way. So those are all the potentials.
Talking about balance, actually trade or cooperation between China and Africa go two ways. Is not only Chinese investment going into Africa, as we usually say, we also see more and more African investment or entrepreneurship going to China. For instance, Africa holds 33% of China's largest internet company, Tencent, and we see more and more businessmen from a lot of African countries going to Guangzhou in southern China. Are we going to see more that kind of investment from Africa or influence from Africa going to China, even to other parts of the world?
Yeah, I think that's for sure. Because maybe during the past long time, we haven't focused too much about the Africans' investment in China. So we just maybe look more about China, go to Africa. Actually, the case you mentioned is very interesting. Like South African's company, they have already long ago invested in the Tencent. When Tencent was just starting to do their business, but now they're becoming so big, influential company. So not only South Africa is a leading economy in the African continent. Of course, they have quite a lot of those much advanced company, but also Mauritius. There are several African countries now that have been doing a lot of investment in China, like Mauritius, also another leading one. So, but of course, another factor is comparing with China's investment into Africa, Africans' investment in China is still lag behind. Yeah, because they are quite unbalanced. Some countries are small, the economic strength is also very limited, so it's not that time yet for them to do the investment here. But we just drop aside about this investment. We talk about trade. Now the trade, same situation, because a lot of China's manufactured goods, products now have been exported to Africa, but Africa now also calling for their products can be sold in China, because China is also a very huge market. In terms of population, China is number one. And this size, not mentioning the size. So Africa also have a rich those products, especially those agricultural products, not only those raw material. So agricultural products like those sesame in Ethiopia, like cassava in Nigeria, like Egypt and Morocco, Tunisia, they have beautiful, those very the tasty, those orange. So all of those things and the lemon, those things. So if they can be exported like to China market, and then Chinese people also will have a chance to taste those beautiful, tasty things from Africa. So, but how to make these things happening? We have done a lot of things, like offer duty-free, quota-free to some African products. Those items of African products has been increased year by year I still remember at the very beginning just offered to like 190 items from African, those least developed country, starting first, and then gradually move like to improved to like 400 more, and then like 1,000. Now it's not mentioned items number. It goes to like 95%. For all those products. as many as you can, coming from those least developed countries. But now it's not enough. We should go to up to those developing countries as a whole. So this is another chance for keep these balanced things.
Right.
Yeah, moving forward.
You've been to Africa for a lot of times indeed, and according to your observation in Africa, how do you think the Chinese investments or business are perceived locally, are perceived in the African countries?
Well, generally speaking, Chinese investment or Chinese trade or business has been widely welcomed, either by the government level or by the people, grassroots level people, because this kind of investment and trade has brought upon a lot of good beneficial for the local people, like investment to the country. It can generate the revenue, and it also can create jobs, and also it can fill in those empty industrial area before they don't have, but now they have. For example, in Ethiopia, now we have Oriental Industrial Park, and then Chinese the shoe making factory has been invested there. They generated 4,000 works for just the show making, and also help the locals to learn this technical skill to how to making shoes. And also we have other those light industry, even some advanced industry. So through those learning by doing, and then the local technical people, skillful people has been also grown up. So this is a very good thing. So for the people also, they got a job, right? Before they don't have job, but now with those foreign investment, especially Chinese investment, now becoming more and more. And then they find a job in the factory, they earn the money, and then of course it improved the living standard. Now they can use those money to buy things to consume. And also in terms of those trade, Chinese manufactured goods, especially those light industrial goods, normally is cheaper comparing with those goods imported from European continent. So it's cheaper. Quality also, I think, is also good. Not that gorgeous, but not that poor either. So those consuming goods also help the people to meet their daily needs. I still remember I once talked with a Nigerian friend. He told me, saying, not only for meeting our daily needs, even improved of our dignity issue. So why is the dignity? Because before, many African grassroots people, they just wear the second-hand clothes. Right. Second-hand clothes is the biggest market in Africa. Those second-hand clothes is coming from European continent. Recently, Rwanda government even issued a policy saying they are increase those tax rate for those second-hand clothes imported from United States. So this has angered those Trump administration, saying, "Oh, how dare you are, a tiny African country, even increase those tariff for those clothes." But this is the thing. So my Nigerian friend told me, now we no longer need.
All right,
to wear.
now let's. I have to interrupt you there. Okay. Let's go to the scene of Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs minister holding a news conference about the upcoming forum on China-Africa cooperation scheduled for September the 3rd and the 4th. Minister Wang Yi is going to give a briefing.
Welcome to today's press briefing. I'm sure that you know that this briefing is about the Beijing summit of the 2018 FOCAC. Today, we have the honor to have with us State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi. He will be talking about the summit and relevant matters. The second part is the Q&A session. Assistant Minister Chen Xiaodong will answer your questions regarding the summit. First of all, I give the floor to State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you very much for being here with us for today's briefing. The 2018 FOCAC Beijing Summit will take place on the 3rd and 4th of September. At that time, Chinese and African leaders will gather in Beijing, focus on the theme that China and Africa toward an even stronger community with a shared future through win-win cooperation. They will renew their friendship, discuss cooperation plans, and
map out a roadmap for the future. Following the Beijing summit in 2006 and the Johannesburg summit in 2015, this summit will be another reunion of the family of China and African countries. This is also the biggest event that China hosts this year, with the greatest number of participating foreign leaders. A great number of leaders from African countries, the chairman of the African Union Commission, will lead a delegation to the meeting. UN Secretary General will be attending as a special guest, and 27 international and African regional organizations will be participating in relevant activities as observers. President Xi has made it clear that China needs to deepen solidarity and cooperation with developing countries so that we can progress together with shared prosperity. To hold the Beijing summit is required by both sides to deepen our comprehensive friendship and cooperation and face up to global challenges together. It is also the concrete steps that China has taken to implement the Xi Jinping thought on diplomacy, the principle of sincerity, real results, effort, and good faith, and the principle of putting greater good before self-interest. We believe that a successful summit will further highlight the vitality of China-Africa solidarity and cooperation, boost the momentum of development of the whole developing countries, hold the strength for peace and development. We hope that the Beijing summit will yield important outcomes in the 4 aspects. First, the summit will make renewed call for a stronger community with a shared future for China and Africa. China and Africa are all along bound by common interests, and we share this affinity, and we are like-minded on international affairs. Facing the profoundly changing international situation, both China and Africa want and need to come together for closer cooperation and adapt to the changing reality. The summit has themed China and Africa toward an even stronger community with a shared future through win-win cooperation. It reflects the shared aspiration of both sides to carry forward the fine tradition and the shared commitment to seeking cooperation and development. For Chinese and African leaders to have close dialogue, they will provide stronger strategic guidance for the cooperation and add new substance to the community in the new circumstances and contribute to the building of a community of shared future for mankind. Second, the summit will usher in a new phase of the Belt and Road Initiative and Africa's development. Africa is a natural extension of the Belt and Road, and also there is close historical link. It is an important area for the Belt and Road Initiative. Many African countries have been keenly interested in participating in Belt and Road cooperation. China will engage with Africa in equal and full consultation, plan together, work together, and benefit together to connect the Belt and Road Initiative with Agenda 2063 of the African Union, the UN Sustainable Development Agenda 2030, and the respective development strategy of African countries, so as to really connect our policy, infrastructure, trade, financial resources, and people. And we can also open up new space for Africa's development and revitalization and provide stronger impetus. Third, the summit will introduce pathways toward a higher level of China-Africa cooperation. China-Africa cooperation has entered a new phase of greater efficiency and is being upgraded. During the summit, we will adopt the Declaration and the Beijing Action Plan, the 2 major outcome documents. A number of bilateral cooperation agreements will be signed. They will provide a holistic plan for China-Africa cooperation in the next 3 years and beyond, including priority areas and key direction. In particular, we will map out cooperation areas that are critical to people's livelihood, employment of African countries, and that will serve to elevate China-Africa cooperation. Such outcomes will turn our shared strong commitment into
real actions, and to combine China's strengths in capital, technology, equipment, and human resources, together with Africa's natural resources, demographic dividends, and market potential. We will also outline pathways going forward so that Africa could gain greater capacity for independent and homegrown development and accelerate its industrialization and modernization process, and also elevate China-Africa cooperation to a higher level. Fourth, the summit will create a new story of China-Africa friendship and kinship. Before and after the summit, the two sides will host 14 sub-forums and side events. The key areas cover youth, subnational exchange, people-to-people exchange, poverty reduction, think tanks, media, and other cultural areas. They will fully reflect the all-round and diverse cooperation between China and Africa, galvanize the enthusiasm and confidence of people from all sectors. The Beijing summit will introduce additional cooperation measures that will be people-centered and encourage Chinese and African people to participate in those cooperation, deepen mutual understanding and friendship, and provide a stronger source of strength for the future relations between China and Africa. In particular, the summit will focus on the exchanges and engagement between the young peoples so that the friendship will be carried forward from generation to generation. Dear friends, it's been 18 years since the inception of the forum. At the start of the century, the forum has been growing together with China-Africa cooperation. It's based on plan together, work together, and benefit together. It features equal participation, and it is result-oriented. There is a clear plan while we also adapt to the changing circumstances. After years of development, China cooperation in this framework has produced visible progress for everybody to see, and such outcomes are welcomed and positively responded by Africa and the international community. Today, FOCAC has become a brand for China-Africa cooperation and another flag leading international cooperation with Africa and stronger South-South cooperation. 3 years ago, the FOCAC Johannesburg Summit was held successfully, during which the two sides agreed to set up this China-Africa Comprehensive Strategic and Cooperative Partnership, opening a new journey for win-win cooperation and common development. For the past 3 years, China and Africa have witnessed close engagement at the top level. President Xi Jinping paid 3 visits to Africa. Nearly 30 African heads of state or government visited China or attended international conferences in China. On multilateral occasions, President Xi Jinping have had a lot of meetings with African leaders. The two sides are now working together to comprehensively follow up on the outcomes of the Johannesburg Summit. President Xi, at that time, proposed the 10 cooperation plans, which are well underway. China has committed a lot of cooperation and assistance, and such promises are being delivered. In the upcoming summit, we are confident that we will present a new score sheet that will make the Chinese and African people happy, and we will make our new commitments.
Friends from the press, after close consultation between China and Africa, we have decided that the upcoming summit will include the following events. In the morning of the 3rd of September, there will be the opening ceremony of high-level dialogue between Chinese and African leaders and business representatives, and the 6th Conference of Chinese and African Entrepreneurs, which will be an important side event of the summit and will pull up the curtain for summit activities. The conference will focus on practical and mutually beneficial cooperation and build an important platform for China-Africa business synergy and China-Africa trade ties. President Xi Jinping and many leaders from African countries will attend attend the conference and deliver remarks, and a lot of Chinese and African entrepreneurs are now signing up for that conference. Later in the afternoon, the opening ceremony of the FOCAC Beijing Summit will be held in the Great Hall of the People. President Xi Jinping will deliver an important keynote speech to give a comprehensive view on China's new philosophies and policies, on strengthening China-Africa ties, and announce China's new actions and measures on China-Africa practical cooperation, which will focus on industrial development, infrastructure, trade and investment, human resource development, science, education, culture and health, biology and environment protection, as well as peace and security. These new important measures will be better tailored to the actual needs of African countries in transforming and growing their economies, and will be more practical, broad covering, and up-to-date. They will not only accelerate China-Africa cooperation and upgrade its quality, but also lend new impetus to China-Africa comprehensive strategic and cooperative partnership. The co-chair of the forum, President of South Africa, and President Rwanda, which is also President of the African Union, UN Secretary General, and AUC Chairperson will also deliver remarks. Before the opening ceremony, President Xi Jinping will host a welcoming ceremony for African leaders, and there will be a group photo. In the evening, President Xi Jinping and his wife, Professor Peng Liyuan, will hold a welcoming banquet for African leaders and their spouses, and they will enjoy a gala evening together. On the 4th of September, there will be the round table for China and Africa leaders. President Xi Jinping and President Ramaphosa of South Africa will chair the morning and afternoon sessions, respectively. Leaders will have in-depth exchange of views on China-Africa relations, as well as regional and international issues of shared interest. The meeting will adopt the Beijing Declaration toward an even stronger China-Africa community with a shared future, and the Beijing Action Plan 2019 to 2021 of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which are two important outcome documents. After the round table, President Xi Jinping, President Ramaphosa, and the incoming co-chair of FOCAC will be meeting the press together to give a comprehensive introduction to the outcomes of this summit. On the sidelines of the summit, President Xi Jinping will also have bilateral talks and meetings with heads of state and government of African countries, and the AUC chairperson. Professor Peng Liyuan will be chairing the Conference on HIV/AIDS Prevention and Control in the morning of the 4th. Spouses of African leaders and heads of the WHO, UNAIDS, and other relevant international organizations will be attending as well. Premier Li Keqiang and other Chinese leaders will also have meetings with African leaders. Friends from the press, autumn is the most beautiful season in Beijing. It is also a season of harvest. Preparations for the summit are now well underway, and major events and activities have been already finalized. Let me tell everybody that Beijing is ready now. We are here to welcome brothers and sisters from the African continent, and will demonstrate our hospitality to our African friends who always stand side by side with the Chinese people. I am sure that with our concerted efforts, the 2018 FOCAC Beijing Summit will be a full success and become a new historic monument for China-Africa friendship and solidarity. Thank you all for your interest in China's diplomacy and China-Africa relations. I also welcome you to give a comprehensive coverage on Beijing Summit and focus on Beijing, on the summit, and China-Africa friendship and cooperation. Thank you. Thank you, State Councilor.
That was Foreign Minister Wang Yi briefing the media about the upcoming Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which is going to kick off on September the 3rd and to the 4th. And Foreign Minister Wang Yi briefed the media about the arrangements of the forum on September the 3rd. High-level dialogues will be happening. Opening ceremony and the national banquet will be held to welcome the African leaders. And on September the 4th, roundtable discussions on China-Africa relations and other major issues will be discussed. For more on the forum, let's talk to Ms. He Wenping, once again our studio guest today. Wang Yi just said that on September the 3rd, at the opening ceremony, President Xi will make a speech in which he will talk about the new type of a China-Africa relationship. How should we understand a new type of China-Africa cooperation? Is it new kind of globalization?
Well, we have been talking about this inclusive globalization. Actually, it's not new, but comparing with those those like deglobalization, I think it can be called new, because now, as we discussed just before this press conference, especially in recent years, and then this increasing this trend is called deglobalization. Now it's there, even on the rise, especially coming from United States, coming from European continent, because now they are suffering this refugee, this coming over. So quite a lot of those leftists and the rightists, those two kinds of extremists, those political forces, especially the rightist one, now they are use this flag, raising the flag, calling, oh, protect our own interests. Yeah, we cannot, accept those refugees because they have been destabilizing our society. Maybe they have been taking our jobs away. So this kind of a deglobalization, they don't want join hand in hand. They want to just set up like a war or whatever, or like a UK, they cut their relation with the EU. They're out of the EU, no longer join together. So with this trend, and then when we're talking about this hand in hand, like building the shared, like a future with China and Africa, we bond together closer rather than saying, all right, we no longer go to Africa. China also doing our own things in China. So that's the different trend. So that's why we call it new type. So we push forward this globalization forward, inclusive one, even though Africa has been, lag behind for the distance, but we want to, together with them, moving forward together. So share our technical know-how, share our development experiences, and share with those development, even those capitals we have been accumulated from the past 4 decades, reform and opening up. So those kind of idea, I think, is totally with those old. Well, I mean, this is old thinking, even coming out from those Cold War era. Right. Only thinking, your gain is my loss. Yeah, always the zero-sum thinking. But now this inclusive globalization is not like my gain is your loss. Indeed. Yeah, we both win because we develop
mutually beneficial.
Yeah, develop that pie bigger.
There is an interesting trend in the Western media. It is very much interested in China-Africa story, while China actually has a lot of investment in the other region in the world, such as South America, in the Middle East, in the Caribbean area, etc., etc. Why is that?
Yeah, because we have shared a very strong historical friendship with Africa. This is the number one. Historical link is very strong. Even though the heritage has been continued until today. So this is number one. Number two, the mutual, those complementary, very deep. All those things now China, we got extra, we call extra productivity capacity. Too much now. It's no longer too shortage economy during our 40 years ago. So with those extra, those productivity capacity, you need to find a place. Yeah, they want to have them.
All right, so we have to leave it here. Professor He, due to the time limit of the program, thank you very much for your insight. Ms. He Wenping from Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. And with that, we come to the end of this special coverage. Coming up next, my colleagues in Washington will bring you more on the news and headlines around the world. Stay with us.